Okay, so you may not know this, but the CIA's involvement in Africa, including orchestrating assassinations, has significantly contributed to the bad conditions in Africa. And this is how. Let me tell you how. This is Africa. It is the 1940s and the 50s, and there is a strong decolonization sentiment across Africa. Many African nations are inspired by the principle of self-determination and sought to end colonial rule. But Western colonial powers are resistant to granting African people their independence. They have significant economic and strategic interest in these African colonies. In many cases, African independence was achieved through negotiations, but these negotiations often involved conditions that favored the former colonial powers, such as economic agreements and political alignments. Some African leaders resisted these conditions and faced violent repression. The motivations behind these violent repressions were complex, involving a mix of political, economic, and ideological factors. During this period, both the US and the Soviet Union sought to expand their influence in Africa. At this time in the history of Africa, an organization known as the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, comes into play in a major way. The Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, known informally as the agency and historically as the company, is a civilian foreign intelligence of the federal government of the United States, tasked with gathering, processing, and analyzing national security information from around the world, primarily through the use of human intelligence, and conducting covert actions through its Directorate of Operations.
Introduction.
With the help of this intelligence agency, the history of Africa has been smeared by the tragic assassination of several prominent leaders, many of whom were pivotal in their country's struggle for independence and self-determination. These assassinations were not merely the result of internal political rivalries, but were often influenced or directly orchestrated by foreign powers, particularly during the Cold War era. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a critical and often overlooked aspect of African history, the CIA's involvement in the continent during the Cold War. From supporting apartheid in South Africa to backing coups and insurgencies, the CIA's actions had profound and lasting impact on political stability, economic development, and human rights across Africa. In this video, we explore these controversial interventions, their motivations, and their consequences. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more deep dives like this one. 1947 to 1991 was a period of geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union. This tension was known as the Cold War, that is, fighting each other indirectly by supporting opposing sides in major regional conflict. This was also known as proxy wars. The United States and the Soviet Union saw Africa as a battleground for influence. The newly independent African nations were seen as potential allies or threats, depending on their political alignments. The United States, through the CIA, sought to prevent the spread of communism by any means necessary, including covert operations and assassinations. Even though CIA covert operations are very hard to prove definitively, there is often substantial evidence and credible testimonies that suggest their involvement in various international incidents. This can include patterns of political upheaval, economic disruptions, and the emergence of regimes favorable to the United States' interests. However, the secretive nature of these operations means that concrete proof is rarely available. In this video, as we continue, you will hear the word communism a lot. That was just the word they used for those who did not really see things the way they did.